Hey guys, it's Kim here, and it's day 26 of the 100-day challenge. And today we're going to go into a little bit deeper concepts, just mainly because that's where my brain's going to at the moment, especially around the universal work that I've been doing, and also the infinite possibilities that are available to us and how we can pretty much bring those things into a reality. I'll explain how this all kind of came about, and and again how that kind of relates to your life, because again concepts and theories don't make sense unless you can use them, right? So last night I was I was actually doing the folding, and so I went onto Netflix and thought I'll watch a show. What then came up is there's a new series called Limitless. Now, Limitless is actually a new series on Netflix that is extended from Limitless the movie. Now, I watched Limitless the movie about a year and a half ago, and when I was watching that, I got a lot of really cool messages about that. And so it really the concept of limitless stems from the fact that if you take this pill, what it does is it opens your level of consciousness and awareness in your brain to be able to do multiple things at one time, to be able to have concepts and processes via your own brain, to be able to pretty much do anything, compute anything at massive speeds. If you haven't seen Limitless the movie, I do recommend you go and see it. It's awesome. But the whole time I was watching the movie, and then also now when I was watching the series last night, was the message that you don't need to take the pill to do this. You can learn to do this, or to, the word learn is probably not the word, expand into doing or receiving this level of information just via new ways of doing things. So that made sense to me only because there is a drug called DMT, which people do take, and I've watched a documentary on DMT. And what that does is it actually assists people to go into their soul, into the universe, and like psychedelic kind of visions and so forth. Now, when I was watching that documentary of DMT, I'm watching that going, we do this in our sessions, like when I'm with clients or with groups or whatever. We actually get access, like we can actually travel in our minds to wherever we want to go to and access these greater experiences that these people were taking pills for. So I'm like, hang on a sec, I can actually have those experiences without taking, synthetic drugs. So I'm thinking that's pretty cool. Okay, whatever. And then when I read Anita Morjani's book, which is Dying to Be Me, and she explains how she has the life after death experience, of the near-death experience, where she leaves her body, experiences herself as a soul in the universe, and the power that you have when you do connect to yourself as a soul in the universe. She then brought that back, that awareness and that consciousness, back into her body, and literally cured herself from cancer within 3 days. Again, when she was explaining her process of what her out-of-body experience was like, again, I'm going, I do this in hypnosis work, visualization work, meditation work with clients. So we don't need to have a near-death experience to be able to get the same connection to the universe, because we can do that again via these other ways. So those two things were really exciting for me to acknowledge, that we can receive the amount of healing, exposure to experiences without actually having to take medication or dying. That was pretty cool. Then watching Limitless, I was getting the same messages. We can still have these abilities on this planet without taking medication, simply through expansion of consciousness. And I'm like, yep, I get it. I'm purely into it. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. by making that decision last night, I've then had a session this morning where, and this is our infinite possibilities sessions that I run with clients. And what I was shown in that session was, afterwards, I kind of did some connecting to the universe to try and find out what was really going on. And I was shown what it's called space-time continuum and relativity. So looking at the combination of the space-time continuum and relativity within this awareness of time and space, and how it's, again, all relative to who we are and what we're experiencing at this current moment. So in this awareness, or this information that I received today in this session, and when I'm looking away, it's because I'm reverting back into bringing those memories back in. I was then shown, and I'll give you different scenarios of these different times. So I was shown 2 different times, and again, where we are. So say, for example, the time I was shown was back medieval times, which was kind of down here. I was kind of shown Merlin kind of area. Then I was showing, me and the client that I was talking with, we were kind of in the middle. So we've got this kind of era, Miss Merlin era, where they used magic to then react to different events. So something would happen to them, or they would be trying to stop something from happening to them as a reaction to the events, using the forces of nature that they had access to. Now, I was shown in this time-space continuum, or space-time continuum, I was actually shown that that's what happened when we were on this planet reacting to events. So back then, if you what you want to call the 3rd dimensional level of consciousness, even magic back then was all based around reaction to events using the forces of nature, and that's what magic was back in that day and age. Where we are now is we're kind of a bit of a step up from those experiences, and where this was very 3rd dimensional and very much you have to see to believe kind of thing. And a lot of magic did happen around being reactive to events. They didn't really create magic from the space of being creators. They were reactors back then. Then I was showing that where we are is we're just kind of here, but then there was another level, and we want to call it, universal level. So it's like, you might relate that to highly evolved beings, levels of consciousness, and what I was shown was this is the creation of events using consciousness. So there's 3 kind of different levels where we're all at the moment. You can either kind of see that you're back in the medieval, where reaction to events, then where we are is kind of moving in between the 2, where we're still reacting to events, but we're moving more into a level of consciousness where we are now being creators of our own reality. But if we can then just connect to that level of universal energy, where there is pretty much creating events using a level of consciousness, I then could see that where we are right now, so it's kind of like a triangle, if you could see it. So there's a universal wisdom, then there's us, then there's this like kind of what I call Merlin kind of medieval levels. Then where we are, I was showing literally infinite possibilities. So where we are right in this moment was right here. But then from this very moment, we have infinite possibilities going off. Like literally, if you can imagine you just standing here right now, and then in front of you, if you could just stop and stand there and look in front of you and imagine that there were infinite paths in front of you. They are actually infinite possibilities and infinite universes that you could step into simply by what you think, feel, experience right now. Then we'll work out or create which path you step into. There are absolute infinite possibilities that you can step into based around what you do right now. So this is where looking and feeling into all of this, it depends on what your next experience is, simply by what decisions and what processes you think at the moment, how you feel, all that sort of thing, as to which path you will go on to. Now, I always say we want to go onto the path of least resistance, which means that in this current moment, we just need to be who we are, receive the information as to what we need to know, and then act on that, which then will take us along the path of least resistance, which is living life guided. But what I've been working on now is taking it one step further. As well as living life guided, we're actually becoming creators in our own universe. So by doing that, we need to connect to our level of consciousness now. And what we were doing was we were playing around our own levels of consciousness. And the difference between our brain and our mind and what that means. So our brain is kind of like the physical entity of like what the brain is, the physical part of us that we think is thinking for us, but in actual fact, it's controlling all our bodily functions, and it's kind of doing that job, like making sure all the messages are getting through. It's kind of doing that. So that's what our brain does, but our mind actually isn't a physical entity. And then you've got your level of consciousness, which, as we can see, our level of consciousness is still alive, even though we may be dead, brain dead. Our level of consciousness is our soul memory and our soul mind. And we actually have access to that in this body because our soul is connected to our level of consciousness. The thing is that when our soul comes into our body, it literally, the level of consciousness shifts into a combination of, again, the human brain, the human mind, and the level of consciousness or the super consciousness, which will then determine exactly, again, what our next realities are. But because we have all these other levels of thinking or consciousness happening at the same time, it reduces our level of consciousness. And then, of course, we have external factors that we're dealing with, which reduces our level of consciousness again. So they say we only use, 10% of our mind or our brain, but the level of consciousness is a different thing because it's not a physical entity. So there's no real way to measure your level of consciousness other than just connecting to what that is and monitoring that and asking, what is my level of consciousness right now? So what we were talking about today is looking at, okay, so what is my level of consciousness right now? The number 5% came up. So then we asked the question, how can we increase that to 10% level of consciousness? And it simply was saying, being in this current moment, bringing all our energy, because we can split our energy everywhere. So we can bring all our current energy back to this current moment. And then from this current moment, we've actually doubled our level of consciousness, which means we're more powerful and we can create more from that place. So we think that by going out there and doing everything, whatever, we're actually being creators. But in actual fact, what we're doing is we're reacting to events, which is what I was showing from the medieval stage. We're actually reacting to events when we're going out and doing things. What we're doing when we're sitting in our level of consciousness and we're focusing on increasing our level of consciousness, what it is it's our level of expansiveness within the universe that we're increasing. So the way we do that is if you treat yourself like the universe, because the universe is within you. So then you just have to bring everything within you, and then you actually have access to infinite power of the whole universe if you then connect to that level of universal energy and source energy within yourself. So by doing that, we've then expanded our level of consciousness double-fold, which means we can then technically not only then be, creators of events and creators of whatever reality we want to have, but then we're stepping further into being those, creating a different level of magic to what they used to use back in the olden days, where we're really going to start to step more into our infinite possibilities of what we can create in the current moment. Now, if you've seen the film Limitless or what have you, I do actually believe that as humans in this body, if we expand our level of consciousness, we can technically do those things. So I can't really explain the depth of what they do in this movie, because there's so many different elements. One thing that comes to mind that I saw in the series yesterday was that this guy was trapped in a building and he was being chased by police, right? So what he then did was he was standing, on those kind of, like little balconies outside, and he could then have the capacity to know exactly how much strength he had in his hands and the distance between, that level to the next level that he could jump down, and his hands could actually then support him. So he knew that if he swung between each level, that he would actually be okay. But then again, in that very moment, he's also seeing all the other possibilities, which is what I'm saying about being in this current moment and looking at all the infinite possibilities that you can take. And what happens in that moment is that because you're so focused on that moment, and then have access to infinite possibilities of what you can possibly do in that moment, you then again take the one that's easiest, or take the option that is more probably more successful, because you can even get the percentage at that stage of how just how successful you will be by actually doing each one. And this is what I do with infinite possibilities, is that we look at all the options of paths that we can go down, and then look at the possibilities and the probability of each one, and then looking at, so we're already doing this in my work that we're doing. The thing that we've seen in these films is that they're computing it in their brain as life is carrying on. So because we're already doing it, I know that if we just expand our consciousness just a little bit more, we can do more. And what I've seen and I've been playing around with is the concept again of time and that space-time continuum, but the fact that time is not linear, it's actually on top of one another. So as soon as we slow down and bring our energy back into this current moment, what then happens is time does slow down. And I was telling a friend yesterday, when we're a perfect example of how time slows down is when we're at netball and we see the time that's on the board as to and the time counts down. I've never experienced this before, where the time will say there's 20 seconds left on the clock. I can't tell you how long that 20 seconds goes for, because it actually seems like it's going forever. And this is where it's all our perception around time, and how we can slow down time simply by how we think, how we feel, how we react. And that time, like that 20 seconds or even that 10 seconds, could actually feel like an hour. And you can get as much done as you want in that time. And again, playing around with these concepts of time and using time to be able to do more things in shorter level of time by using this sharper vision and this higher level of consciousness. Technically, I don't know if you can feel into this, but technically it's almost like you're superhuman. You can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, let alone bringing in things like quantum physics and quantum leaping, where we can connect to any other part of ourselves, because we are just source energy that's split. So there's part of ourselves that are actually living the life that we want to live right now in another universe, because again, it's just another option. So if we tune into that, we can then see how they did that and bring those realities into this current reality, and then know that we will be successful in the future. I could ramble on about this stuff forever because it's so incredibly exciting. I was then connecting to, well, how did I get access to all of this stuff? And the information I got was that I started this work through EFT, which is tapping. I never had access to any of this stuff before then. So the message I got around that is that EFT and tapping actually rewires the brain and opens up your level of consciousness, because then by using the tapping on the meridians and the pressure points, it's clearing the previously blocked areas of your brain and your body to then be able to receive more of what information you need. So previously blocked areas in your brain and in your body are actually cleared through tapping and EFT, which was an amazing reality to acknowledge. But to be honest, that's just exactly what happened. From there, that's how I started receiving infinite, wisdom from the universe. And again, I'm able to connect more and more. And as I was kind of doing a little bit of a meditation before I came on, just to ask more questions about what this is that we're playing with. And then, you know, the concepts of space-time continuum and relativity all came up, and all I needed to do then was just Google it, and I'm just given exactly what I need to know from what's going on. So it's an amazing process, and I hope you keep up with all of this. I'm just loving sharing, you know, my life and my processes with you, because what I find happens is, as soon as I share this with you or with someone, and we do it in my groups and with my clients and things like that, what then happens is I'm given more information and more information, more information. So I don't know what this will do for you. I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions, you can just pop them below, because I can receive any information that we need to know around this. But I'm loving this experimental process of playing with infinite possibilities, and the fact that simply by expanding our level of consciousness, we will get to this place, evidently, where relatively we will be creating our own reality. And we're not going to be reacting to events anymore, which is really, really exciting. We are going to be creators in the universe that can create whatever we want to, whatever experience we want to create, and to have that level of limitless capacity to do whatever we want as a soul in a body is so much fun. I don't know what you think, and for not any other reason other than it's really fun, and then to have some friends come along and do it with you. That's my whole purpose here, is to really just see what we're capable of. And really the deeper we go with this, the more I'm finding out about how much we actually have access to, and not only for us to be happy in our lives, but then also whatever we want to achieve. And at the end of the day, for me, you know, looking further into achieving a level of healing within the world, especially on the physical planet, and then looking into the concepts of, you know, the universe is changing so much the more we shift our levels of consciousness, and so the earth and people on it will start changing as well as a reaction of that. It's a reaction to the action that we take. These are all universal laws, and it's something that we all have access to, and how we can actually make a massive difference simply by us playing with this stuff. So again, if you want to play with it a little bit more with me, I do, you know, sessions and groups and programs with people. Message me or pop a question below. It's awesome, and we're only just at the beginning of this process. I can't wait to share more and more concepts that are coming through as to how we can play around with having a limitless life on this planet, and how the planet will actually shift as a reaction to our actions, and that's how it's going to happen. So the more that we own this, the more that we can become creators of our own universe and our own reality. You watch things change around us, people change around us, things change around us, and we can start to make a real difference here. So if you're with me, put your hand up, and I'm looking forward to having fun with you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.